Lord, help us to be better citizens and to remember the four-way test in all our activities. Amen.
And Ben Rexroad will lead us in the pledge and the four-way test.
Good morning. Good morning. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test and the things we think, say, and do. First, is the truth. Second, is fair to all concerned. Third, with goodwill and better friendships. And fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And our songmeister, Dick Pearsall.
I don't know if you can see those. The young lady came up with Louis Armstrong's version of When You're Smiling. So all the G's are gone, and you'll just have to do it that way. And maybe you can remember enough that we can go it. Here we go. When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. For when you're crying, that brings on the rain, so quit your sighing. Be happy again, because when you're smiling, the ending, the whole world smiles with you. Louis Armstrong would probably like that.
He would. Thank you. Please take your seats. And our Assistant Secretary, Joe Zapatowski, will introduce some guests.
Good morning, Rotarians. Those guests that I call, will you please stand so we can recognize you? The spouse of our speaker, Debbie Quigg. Morning. Casey Ackerman, the Hudson High School outgoing youth exchange student. Morning. And her dad, Russ Ackerman, if you would stand. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So moving right along, we have no 3-minute Rotarian this week because we're a little busy, but next week, Catherine Sines is our 3-minute Rotarian. And we're going to draw a name out for 2 weeks from now, which will be March the 9th. And that is Allison. Did you just do it? Why are you in there? Why are you in there? Oh, that's right. Kelly Brennan.
What about that? Yes.
March the 9th.
I guess that'll work.
3-minute Rotarian. Good. Gail Royster, do you have, did you want to make an announcement?
Good morning, Rotarians. And thank you, President Joe, for giving me like 1 minute. This is about the Service Learning Project. You've all gotten emails. I know I badger you with emails, but I thought you would be interested in knowing what some of the topics are for the project that we are going to participate in during the month of March. Student stress, world hunger, sex trafficking, college tuition, marijuana, heroin prescription abuse, school lunches, hall monitoring, nuisance business, and the Teen Rec Center. So those are the topics, and those of you who haven't signed up yet, please just return that email to me with your choice of times, and we'll be all set. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. One other announcement, Liz Ramsey wanted me to remind you about the Rotary Tea, April the 16th, save the date. So I would like Casey to come up and just spend a few minutes, and Casey's going to tell us where she's going next year and why she's going. Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Casey Ackerman. I go to Hudson High School, and this coming year I'm going to Brazil for an exchange. And it wasn't the first on my list. I was planning to go to Switzerland because I speak French, but I'm really excited for this opportunity. And I went to Rotary camps and met other exchange students, and they were so happy for me, and they were so nice. And some of them told me to be careful, and then some of them showed me pictures of when they went to Brazil. And it just made me really excited, and I'm glad to have this opportunity. Yeah. I have 2 sisters. One's in middle school and one's in high school. And I'm really excited to go to Brazil because I was worried at first that I'd have to pick up a whole new language, but I'm really excited now because I kind of want to learn Portuguese and I want to know the culture of the Brazilian people. And I'm glad that I'm going to South America and not Europe now because I've already been to Europe and I think that South America would be a really good opportunity.
Well, thank you, Casey, and we will have you back to visit us over the next couple of months before you go, and we'd like to hear more about your camps and the orientations and things that you attend. Casey's going to be part of that Rotary Youth Exchange program. Rotary has over 8,000 students every year worldwide that travel all over, and it's a great program. Catherine Sines is going to introduce another.
I have a special treat this morning. A very good friend and one of our principals wants to speak this morning about the Eastwood Courtyard project. So here's Michael Sedlak. He's been with the district 3 years. He came from Chardon High School after that disaster there, and he really has been instrumental at our school with the safety programs and trying to get us started with that. But Michael Sedlak.
Good morning. It's Catherine Thank you. I'm the principal at Eastwoods. I'm very excited to be here. At first, I was glad that I wasn't following the Louis Armstrong song, but following a student is probably the worst thing that someone has to do. So good luck, Casey. I student taught in Brazil, so anything you need to know, let me know, and we'll chat before you head off. So this is my first year at Eastwoods, and it's a great school, great teachers. Certainly the students are amazing. But the courtyard's not so great, and we are working to remodel the courtyard, kind of tear it down and make it better, and I'm almost remiss to call it a courtyard anymore because what we really want it to be is a outdoor classroom, an extension of our everyday classroom. And I told I had very short time, so I'm going to fly. There's a lot of different ways that we can use this outside of your traditional classroom. We could have students write plays. We could present things out there. We're looking to have 2 phases of the courtyard renovation. The second one including a projection screen for possible movies or, again, presentations. The arts could use it to do art shows, musical performances, for inquiry, our science and social studies areas, just to do measurements and angles and see how things grow and what grows better in what environments. It's really going to be, again, not a courtyard, but an extension of the classroom for the Eastwood students. Another part of my vision for the Eastwood school is to have more community involvement and community into the school. HCER, the Scouts, youth groups, musical groups, again, they could come in and use it. They can use the space just like they would any other space within the district. And again, performances, you certainly could have a meeting there, although I'm not sure we could provide the breakfast that's here today, but we could try. So again, it's not just for our students, but for the entire community. The current space, and I took these two pictures because they're similar to the angles of the artistic renderings we have. But this is from the roof looking down. It's really an inusable space at this point. Here's another angle of inside the courtyard. You know, the planter boxes are aged and really just fill up with water. Sometimes we do have ducks visit us, from what I've heard, in the spring. So that'll be interesting. But the bricks on the steps are really not suitable for student use anymore. We do have kids go out there on occasion. This fall they did, but for safety reasons, we'd prefer them not to be. So again, the overview, we plan on having 2 classrooms on either side, an upper classroom and a main stage. Eventually, we would like tables and benches in the classroom areas, but again, the first phase is really to get the concrete out and get concrete in, and to replace the windows and doors around the courtyard, again, to make it usable. And another artistic rendering. Since we've gotten these renderings, we have had other proposals from different local companies, which has changed the price. The original estimate was about $161,000. Again, that's for just gutting it and getting concrete back in, and then replacing the windows and doors that surround it, what the board has called the showcase. Groundbreaking spring of 2016, that's right around the corner. Based on the support from the district and the Board of Education, they have started on some of those nicer days a couple weeks ago, started tearing the bricks out just to reduce the cost of demolition when we eventually get to that point. And then, you know, my goal is to be open and ready for community use in August 2016. I know that's a lofty goal, but we gotta set that out there. So that's my goal, is to have you guys in there. We've done, I'm sure you've seen things around town or been to, I was talking to a man this morning about standing in line at Chipotle for over an hour for a burrito. We appreciate all the help from local companies, Sky Zone, Lulu's. Some kids said they want to sell smensels, which are smelly pencils. To be very honest, there's all these different flavors or scents depending on how you look at it, and we sold about 3,000. It was supposed to go on for 2 weeks. We sold it in less than 4 days. So we did have around 2. We have some competitive students out there that said, well, if this class has enough money to buy a brick, we want to buy a brick too. So they did a second round of smensels with Valentine and spring scents, and that's going on currently. We've had the 161 Club, which piggybacks off the original estimate of $161,000, and there'll be a large plaque in the courtyard when it's all finished with all the names that have joined that club. Chipotle, Spencel's, Lulu, Sky Zone. We've teamed up with Hudson City Schools Foundation. They've been collecting the money and making sure we have all of our ducks in a row to make sure that we move forward. Last week we had a Jesse Rubin concert. He had come in. He's a singer and songwriter. He came in and worked with McDowell all day on Thursday, had a concert at Eastwood's Thursday afternoon, but Wednesday night we had a community concert and raised over $1,000 towards the courtyard for that. And we also have just overall naming rights that people have been donating to, and actually both of the learning centers for $10,000 have already been purchased, which is great, but we're still not quite there yet. We're at about $155,000, and again, that's thanks to support from our Board of Education. So thank you for that. And I think I'm under my 5 minutes, but if you have questions, I do have literature on all of your tables. The 161 Club, more information about the courtyard, and then donation forms. You certainly can call or email me at any time. My contact information's on there. Or you can ask me questions now, if Joe allows that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Michael will be around if you do have questions. Now, the reason why Michael's here is leading up to Fine Day, and that is the proceeds from our Fine Day today will go to the Eastwoods Courtyard project. However, there are donation forms, as Michael mentioned, and you can always donate on your own. So, Fine Day, Joe Boycell, pinch hitting for Ed Sogan.
All right, good morning. I did bring some, so you know the project that we're raising money for, and I did look through some newspapers here and found all sorts of interesting things to begin with that I think that we should bring up. So let me start right there. This is February 17th, page 8. In the newspaper. Bear with me, my eyes aren't quite working as well. I forgot my readers. Okay, the legislation, the heading of this one on the opinion page, the legislative preview covers marijuana redistricting, presidential politics. And the writer says on the first issue that the House Speaker Cliff Rosenberg, a Republican from, is that Clarksville, doesn't sound too keen on legalizing marijuana for medical purposes. To that point, Larry Stanton, Phil Warburton, and Gail Royster, you'll have to find another way to deal with your glaucoma. So you'll have to chalk up $1 each of you for that, all right? Let's see, there's another one. Oh yeah, on page 19 in here in this newspaper here, 16, 17. Oh yeah, right here. Big color pictures. Do you see these right here? This is the Kent State Associate Professor speaks at Hudson Clock Tower Rotary Club program. They're in the news and we're not, okay? That's really unacceptable, and so for that, if your first name has an A or an O in it, raise your hand. Pay $1. If your last name has an E or an I in it, raise your hand. Pay $1. If you did not raise your hand, raise your hand. Pay $1. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Next paper, turns out that Eastwoods Elementary is in the news again. Yeah, hold on. Don't get so excited here. All right. The board gave a 5-0 nod, February 8th, for a proposal by Dankin, is that how you say it? Applied whatever for $635,000 to install air conditioning solution and a boiler plant at Eastwood School. Board member James Field, we think we know him, said that the resolution had been thoroughly researched. Superintendent Phil Herman thanked those who were doing the research, and Treasurer Catherine Sines for the work they did on the research. Here's the quote, Eastwoods is one of the hottest places in the district. Well, who wants to mess up one of the hottest places in the district? Moreover, it's the one chance that Hudson kids have for a little street cred. I mean, can you imagine the stories now? Our Land Rover got a flat tire on the way to school when I was a kid, and I had to walk a half a block to get there. This is what we're going to have to hear from now on. Not, oh, it was sweaty. I even texted my son. You were at Eastwoods for 2 years? Yeah, I was at Eastwoods 2 years. Did it need air conditioning? He said, I don't really remember. You have to believe. So let's see, who do we have to pay? I only see one of the people mentioned. James is not here today, is he? And neither is Phil, which means you only have to pay $3 for the other two. All right, Catherine. Oh, one more. I dropped this thing off here. This is, where is this? Page 1, Kindness Week. Where is that?
So your kids don't sweat.
They don't sweat, yeah. Yeah, here we go.
Tom voted on that.
Yeah, I did.
Pay $1.
I did.
All right. So here it is. Marty Hill is honored to kick off Random Acts of Kindness Week. The Random Acts of Kindness Week, February 14th to 20th, began with a rousing start with the blessing of Mayor David Basil at the town hall. You know what would be an act of kindness, David? Helping these kids get a courtyard. So pay a couple $1 right there. All right. That's all the news we have, but moving on to marriage. I think marriage is a wonderful institution. Frank Sinatra said, until a man is married, he has no idea what happiness is. But by then, it's too late. You like that one? Pay $1. All right. Story of a couple, 50th wedding anniversary.
Let me help you with that.
Okay, yeah. Story of a couple on their 50th wedding anniversary. They're driving home, and the wife looks over and notices a tear in her husband's eyes, and she says, "Feeling a little sentimental about our 50th anniversary?" He said, "No, not really. To be honest with you, I was thinking about just before we got married when your dad threatened me with a shotgun and said if I didn't marry you, he'd throw me in jail for 50 years. I'd have been a free man tomorrow." You like that one? Pay $1. Okay, so who celebrated milestone anniversaries in 2015? You had a one ended with a 5 or a 0. Anybody have one of those? What'd you have? 30th. Well, congratulations. I don't think we can find you, but we can find somebody at your table. Catherine, pay $1 for it. All right. Anybody else? Milestone? What do we have? 65th. Pay $100. No, just $1. All right.
Pay $1. All right.
Any others? Milestone anniversaries in 2015? All right. What about you've had an anniversary in 2016? So since no, nobody got married in the winter. Well, so those shotguns got put away. I see. All right. What about who cooked dinner for their sweetheart on Valentine's Day? You cooked dinner. You lousy oh, okay, all right. George, pay $1. All right. And all the rest of you who didn't cook dinner for your sweetheart, pay $1. Okay. All right. Birthdays. I have one from Chris who she had to leave, but she said her idea for a birthday celebration would be to have the Rotary meet on the scenic railroad, the Ohio Valley Scenic Railroad, and kind of go together and that she would pay $1 per person if we could get that together. So towards your fee, I don't know how much it would be, but at any event, that's out there. So I don't know. We'll take $1 for her for that idea. Here are 2 other birthdays: George Schneider, Phil Warburton. Any thoughts on things that you would like to do for your birthday to raise money for the good children of the Eastwoods, coolest school in town, elementary school?
I think we should have a meeting on the railroad.
Well, we should, but you can't take somebody else's idea. You have to come up with your own idea.
I agree with him.
Okay.
He seconds that.
He seconds that. Well, you could good. Pay $10 for that. All right. Anybody else?
It's my railroad, so.
Oh, okay. All right. One other birthday, and that's mine, January the 17th. So I thought, I'd like to, I'm going to make $10. This is a $10 contribution if I can get 2 minutes or less from Jeff Tong and Evan McCauley. Can I get 2 minutes from the two of you right now? And I'll give $10 to the calls.
Yeah.
All right, come forward, please.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Maybe I'll just pay $10. So.
Yeah. So here's what I need you to do. No, come over here on this side. Okay, can I get the? Can we black the screen out for just a minute? Does that work?
All right, what are we doing here?
I want you to turn around. Grab this right here. Jeff, tie this in the front of him, will you?
Where's the cap?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a seam.
Tie this in the front.
I think you're doing
Tight.
out here, Jeff.
And you listen so well.
I do. I take instruction immediately. Oh, there you go.
Oopsie.
That's pretty smart. Until it catches on fire.
That's good.
Should we
Now,
know?
Evan, will you tie this in front of Jeff here?
Should we know where this is going?
No. I think I'm the youngest guy there.
Better than those.
All right.
Wiffle golf balls.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, we've got this down here. Okay. We need a little music for this one. All right. So now you got to turn around and face this right here. Okay. And the one who gets the most balls out of their box when I say stop wins. All right. So we gotta record this. Go. right, who do we got?
I think I'm out.
You got 2 out. How many?
Clean.
He's clean. Oh, champion over here.
I can shake it.
All right. And you're welcome to remove those said Kleenex devices.
Probably keep this on.
Where's that fantasy come from?
Okay. What I promised $10, didn't I? All right. All right. That was the best birthday present ever. Who did I get you?
Okay. That's gonna be in there.
All right. Oh, John, yeah. You should see Phil Warburton. He has some great moves.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Thank you for raising that money. Thank you. That's a first. So, Jim Ahern.
Almost good as a pie in the face. I hope my introduction goes better than Bruce Springsteen's did last night in Cleveland when he said hello to everybody in Pittsburgh at Quicken Loans Arena. Unbelievable. Really, this is the last week to talk about entrepreneurship, and it's my pleasure to introduce a speaker who is a serial entrepreneur who has successfully built and sold 3 businesses, an active angel investor and a former officer in 2 publicly traded technology companies. Dan Quigg is currently CEO of Public Insight Corporation, an analytics software company focused on education, health, and communities. Dan is a founding member of the North Coast Angel Fund, one of the largest angel venture funds in the United States. He began his career in the 80s and 90s as a CPA and consultant to middle market companies. He was with KPMG and the middle market practice in Cleveland, 81 to 88. He's a founder of Business Systems Consultants from 1988 to 1997. He consulted with over 100 companies on deployment of financial systems. He received his BS from Valparaiso University in 1981 and a CPA in 1983. And in 2007, he received an MBA and from Case Western Reserve, Weatherhead School of Management, and he was also the inaugural winner of the Weatherhead Executive MBA Leadership Award as nominated by his peers. He's married to Debbie, and we know 30 years, and has 3 daughters. He also served as advisor on the President's Council for Opportunity International, which he was involved in microeconomic development in Nicaragua and Rwanda. That's only half what's on here, so maybe you can fill in some of the rest. Dan, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Boy, these are tough acts to follow. I mean, it really could be helpful if he could go out and raise capital with me, if you could go out and raise capital with me. And I don't know if the shaking the balls off, though, is going to fly too well in front of would-be investors.
It's huge.
Is it? Yeah. Yes. It is, it's a real blessing to be here. Boy, you guys are really a fun group. I think this is a joy to be here. My wife Debbie and I know Mayor Basil, thank you for also being involved in our business, along with now former Mayor Curran. And this is actually our 4th, I think it's our 4th business in Hudson. It was kind of a tie between Solon and Hudson. But we just consider Hudson to be our home, even though we live in Brecksville. But we've had pretty much a good experience with business here. So my talk is just going to be on the perspective of the entrepreneur that struggles. So you'll hear some of my life struggles. So that's why I call the title "Win, Lose, or Draw: An Entrepreneur's Life Principles." There's actually let's see if this works here. There we go. This loses a little translation in the fact that it's a video, but an entrepreneur is like a king. When Debbie and I went to Rwanda in 2009, we went to the base of where you normally would go to see the gorillas. And surprise to us, we went to a cultural village and they crowned me king. So an entrepreneur is like a king. And that's me, if it's not obvious. That's me in the middle there. And I've been crowned a king. And this is again where I have some a couple brief videos that are not going to play here. Let's see. Can you advance that for me? There we go. So the first one was he leads his subjects, so I'm just going to have to use my radio voice here and kind of describe what's going on here. So I was ushered into this tent, and my wife had to, because as a king, I have a harem, and so in order for this nice woman here to be respectful, she had to bow 3 times and then wear those magical green slippers there to enter in. And I had to point my scepter at her to allow her to come in. So I have to lead my subjects. The second is I have to lead in celebration, and what you realize is that I have absolutely zero rhythm whatsoever there. So I'm leading in celebration, and then leading into battle. I think I flunked all 3 of those tests. So in the entrepreneur being like the king, I flunked by leading my subjects, I flunked by leading in celebration, and I flunked by leading into battle. As kind of my whole talk this morning is on really 12 words. Begin with passion, so I'm going to give you those 12 words right now. Begin with passion, persevere through obstacles, treasure relationships. Now, normally an entrepreneur is not going to stand up here and say treasure relationships, but that you'll see how that fits in very well. Celebrate victories and survive failure. And I'm going to use that word failure kind of loosely. It's really disappointments more so than failure. So this is the start here of my career. I left a nice secure job at KPMG. I was a manager in the Cleveland middle market practice, and but I was absolutely hooked on computers. This was, what we now consider computers. This is in the late 80s, and what we would now consider computers back then. If I knew a little bit of how to manipulate spreadsheets, I was a computer expert. But the day I got my first computer, I was absolutely hooked. It was those old compact sewing machine, luggable. I'm dating myself. I see some head nods. And to call this thing a laptop would have been a misjustice, because you would have crushed your lap putting that thing in it. It had about a 3-inch square screen, green screen, and wow, it had a 10 megabyte hard drive, and it was phenomenal. And I was hooked on this thing, and so I approached my bosses at KPMG and I said, I really would like to work on this project, which they anointed the small systems practice at KPMG. You're going to wonder, how did a CPA get involved in computers? Well, I got this computer, and I had this great idea that, along with a couple other folks, why don't we start a small systems practice at KPMG? And so we did that, the 3 of us, and I was even more hooked. And I said, well, can I do this full time? I was an audit manager. I was actually part of the middle market practice, so I was running a whole bunch of engagements. So you guys remember Medic Drug, that was one of my accounts. Dalton Industries, which was a women's sportswear manufacturer. So I was doing these things, but I was hooked on the computer. I said to my boss, can I do this full time? He goes, sure, we'll do it full time. And I'd start for a while, and then I'd add more hours to my managerial workload. And I said, I got to leave because I just have to do this stuff with the computers. And so I left KPMG, actually, one little child and one on the way, and I left because I was pursuing my passion. Now, I teach entrepreneurship, or I used to, at Kent State, and I always ask the students, I say, what is it that causes you to, or what would make you want to go and start your own business? And the answer is really telling. It's, I don't really want to work for anybody else, or I don't want a regular job. I want to be able to control my own destiny. And that is flat out wrong, the reason to just go out and start a business, because you have to be behind something that you're passionate about. And for me, I never wanted to be out front. For those that say that entrepreneurs don't work for somebody else is a lie, because you have customers, you have investors, you have your family, you have your employees. You always have somebody you're working for. So to say I'm not going to work for somebody else, that's just not accurate. So for me, it has to be, and those that do go into business, they have to follow their passion. My perfect job would be to design software, and that's what I do. I get to do, a large part of my job is just helping our company to design, hopefully, strong software products. So I started out not because I wanted not to work for somebody else or that I had this burning passion to be a small business owner. There are many days I wish I was working for somebody else. But it really came out of a passion for wanting to work with these computers, work with software, and that's how I got started. The company, as Jim said, was Business Systems Consultants, and it was really a consulting company. It kind of morphed into software, and that kind of leads me to my next key point. So begin with passion is number one. Number two is persevere through obstacles. I've written a lot of business plans over the years, executive summaries, and when you pitch to investors, and I've raised about, I'm probably over my career, about, not a whole lot in terms of perspective, but about $5 or $6 million worth of capital, and you always position to investors, it's going to be this nice smooth line with the finish line up ahead, and what's reality is exactly what you see there is these major dips in the road. I like this one here, with a little bridge across. There you've got the moat here that you got to go across. So it's really, this is really what running a small business is like. And those of you that do run small businesses, it's exactly like that. There's dips. It's never that perfect line. And so to persevere through obstacles was a key thing. And I started my first business in 1988. And in 1994, we hit our first crisis, and that was really a watershed moment for me. So it was getting through these obstacles, but then hitting the crisis point, and that's really the third one, which is, you're gonna say treasure relationships. So this is not a business talk, because in my sense here from this group is you guys treasure relationships, and that is a key part of what you do. Well, I was very headstrong, I'm very task-driven, and for me, I had to have literally a moment of crisis in order for me to treasure relationships. So there's a number of relationships I'm going to describe here. So the 1994 crisis moment was, for me, we had a small company. I really haven't run big companies, but we had about 12 people, and I came in one day, and actually it wasn't quite that many, it was 9 or 10, and about 7 had resigned. And that's not a good day at the office. You probably want to turn right around and head back. Without going into all the details of how and why that happened, I basically had found out that I had been convinced that my best value as within the company was to go out and just be the rainmaker, the breadwinner, so to go out and work with clients. And so I was kind of abandoning the shop, and people just thought I really didn't care about them. In fact, I asked, why would you not come to me before resigning? And the answer was, I didn't think you'd listen. So I really had to have that eye-opening experience. So what really forced this for me in 1994, that first watershed moment, is to just treasure relationships. I was on a path that I'm convinced would have been taking me down to roads of poor interpersonal relationship, whether it's with my wife, with my kids. More importantly, I have a personal faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. That was a major part for me to be able to kind of reset that, because I was down my own me path, and so that relationship was number one for me, is reestablishing and making sure that and recultivating that relationship with my Lord and Savior. The second, interesting enough, was a relationship with myself. We all know that we have to work in balance, and I had let myself completely go. I remember 1994, I got on a treadmill and I could barely walk a mile. And I was huffing and puffing. I go, how did I let myself get into this? So get to this point where literally I couldn't walk a mile on a treadmill. And it was, again, an eye-opener. How you get to that point, it takes a lot of time, and it builds up, and then all of a sudden you say, how did I find myself here? Then relationship with my wife. My wife has always supported me in these weird schemes of going into business. This is my eighth and final, I assure you. I'm 56 years old. It's getting too tough to do this anymore. So 8th startup, and she's just not going to let me do it anymore. At least I begged her not to let me do it anymore. So my relationship with my wife, who's persevered, she's worked for me at different occasions. The only person I probably ever really yelled at in a company is her. So that spouse, that's what that's part of being the spouse, is you kind of take the abuse and take not abuse like bad abuse, but you take kind of more than you should be taking. And then friendships, treasuring those friendships. I have not, since that moment in 1994, I've placed relationships much more, treasured them much more. And then obviously family, my kids. We have 3 grown daughters, no grandchildren yet. And in fact, we came in, the first person we saw was Ron sitting back there. Our daughter is very close friends with Lynn Barnhouse. And she has these core group of friends. We have these core group of friends. And we treasure that. Celebrate victories is the next one. So we, and again, this is where a video helps. So from 1997 through 2005, we had a series of major successes. 2 software companies that sold, both were in Hudson. So I guess the good ones are in Hudson. Maybe the bad ones were in Solon. I don't know. But both of them were right across the street we were one of the first tenants in Omni Commons across the street, and the company was called Omni Vista. It sold to a company called Best Software, and we were off to the races. In fact, we were this was in the 1999, and back then technology, if you were in technology, you were getting signing bonuses to go exit and go somewhere else. I don't know if those who remember that. So we had recruiters trying to recruit our team. So if you had a tech team in Northeast Ohio, people were leaving left and right. We didn't lose a single person. And in fact, recruiters still tell me today that was amazing that we didn't have any person leave our company. And I think it was the culture. On the left there, again, this is where I had a video. We actually had a band. Because we were bought by Best Software, we were called it the Best Band. And they actually run around playing. We were part of the Akron Corporate Challenge. We won the Akron Corporate Challenge. We had this culture that just made it those great days to be part of a small business. And I still have people come up to me and say, man, I really love being at Omni Vista, or RiskLogic was the other company that sold to Merge Healthcare. So celebrating victories is a real key part of running a small business. We still have, we don't do it enough, but we still celebrate victories. And then the last one is survive failure. So I thought I had that magic touch. So in 2005, I went on an odyssey where I went to, Jim had mentioned, I went to a number of developing countries on behalf of Opportunity International and World Vision to build up microeconomic development. And I thought I was completely done in 2005 with small businesses, but I was also a venture capitalist, and I was investing in a few small businesses. I invested in this golf company, and I had this brainchild that it would be better if I ran it than somebody else. So I decided to step in, and this company was, as I like to call it, mega stinker. And it wasn't that the company itself was bad. A lot of successes and failures in entrepreneurship and businesses are just a part of timing. And this one, which, without going into details of what it did, it basically was a monitoring device that monitored golf shots. So it could be used for contests and events. It was kind of portrayed as a hole-in-one automation device. It started out here in Northeast Ohio. If you ever played Little Mountain or Briarwood, or I think briefly it was at Hudson Ellsworth here. It was that device that it was really a marketing. It was used a lot in events, and we had it all over the country. We had it in Canada, and in 2008, I should say, when the economy imploded, it was like the first thing that golf courses killed because it was kind of a revenue share, and so we had it literally overnight just plummeted. And you could see the article in the right, golf tech company hits rough patch. And that was really, we literally had to survive failure. And I use this term failure. There really is no failure to a small business person. It's just life lessons and you move on. And that's really what happened with me. In fact, I really like the term discipline versus punishment. I don't believe God punishes people. I believe God disciplines. And in fact, that's a biblical saying that it says that the sorrow that is according to the world produces a repentance, the sorrow that is according to the word produces a repentance without regret, leading to salvation, but the sorrow of the world produces death. So discipline is, I got that the wrong expression. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of repentance for those that are trained by it. So if you think about discipline and you think about overcoming failure, it's all really about how those life lessons are being taught to you, whether it's whether it's through business or other life lessons. And so I had to learn how to survive that failure and then grow and thrive from it. Which leads me to today. So we are running our hopefully our last startup early stage company. I'm very optimistic it will be successful. It's not going to shape me or make me or shape who I am, but Public Insight is hopefully a very exciting company here in Hudson. I know that in meeting with Mayor Basil that I know that I think Mayor Curran had convinced you this is going to be really a big success, and we've got to keep it here in Hudson. And I do believe that. I do believe it could be really sizable. It's an analytic software company. It takes all this public data, puts it together, makes it usable. We'll find out in the next year or two whether this is going to be really successful. But I'm very thankful for those life lessons that we learn as entrepreneurs. So it's going out with passion. It's overcoming obstacles. It's treasuring relationships. It's all about celebrating victories, and then also about surviving and thriving through failure. So thank you for inviting me to speak, and I don't know if there's anything you want to. Sure.
Can you explain a little bit more about Public Insight and what you do there?
Okay. The best way I can explain Public Insight is imagine going into a library, and the library has no card catalog system. So it just has a bunch of books on the floor and it says, here, go out and find the book that you want. That's the issue with public data today. So if you go on the internet and you type a search, you expect results back that says, helps you with the search. That doesn't do very well with things like census data or labor data or enrollment data. So what we've done is we've created this card catalog system that makes any piece of public data work well together. So we can take census data and merge it in with health data. We could take census data and make it work with labor data. You shouldn't ask an entrepreneur that question, but we started out in higher education. We have about, literally, we're going through last night, I think we have close to 1,000 registered users now that are in colleges, colleges and higher ed. And then we're unveiling a health product in the next couple months that we partnered with American Hospital Association and Division of United Health. So we pulled together all this health data around hospitals and how to look at hospitals. So the quick answer, which I should have stopped on, is we've created this system of making public data work well together.
The companies that you've started that prior to Public Insight, what's happened? I mean, other than the golf one, what's happened to those? Did you sell them? Did you spin them off somehow? Are you still involved in those?
No. There's quite a few of them, but so Business Systems Consultants was sold to a company out of Pittsburgh. I call that a bunt single. If you look at its exit. Yeah, the two software companies, one was sold to Best Software, which was then sold to Sage Software, and it was still across the street and doing well until Sage decided to it still exists. It's up in Beechwood now. It's a shell of what it was. So Sage was a big company. They decided to kind of run it out. Software companies didn't do that. Then Merge, which was actually had about 50 people over across the street, decided to consolidate to Milwaukee. And if you read the news, actually IBM just bought Merge a little bit ago. And then there's a couple that are still around that are, well, 9-Iron, which was the golf company, that's done. But Tequity, I'm still working with to some level, and then Public Insight is still around. So.
I have one. You talked a little bit about your faith and the way that that works with your life as an entrepreneur. What do you think about, or perhaps maybe a better way to ask this, have you ever worked with churches or faith communities and using what you know in the business world to help faith communities, or do you think that there's a relationship there that needs to be explored?
Yeah, if I understand the question right, so I'm part of an organization called Christian Business Owners Fellowship that helps and mentors not just business owners basically, and so that's part of it's really a parachurch ministry. We're also part of Christ Community Chapel in Hudson, and I really feel my passion is not so much with business owners as it is with young men. So we're very active in we're mentors to young couples, and then I also work with and if you've ever heard of an organization called Christian Leadership Concepts, but it's called CLC. And it's just growing like wildfire here in Northeast Ohio. I think there's something like 1,000 people have come through CLC, and it's a 2-year commitment to mentor a group of 12 to 14. And I just finished up my second group. So is that kind of your question?
Yeah, that certainly works. I was sort of thinking more, if you can't tell, I'm obviously in a faith community. So yeah, how entrepreneur skills might help me as a clergyman or
I got you.
Other pastors and priests in whether you think that perhaps we need to look more into the business world as much as the other way around.
Yeah, and I think actually Christ Community Chapel, they asked me to participate in some kind of leadership training, and I don't know quite what that looks like because it's coming up this summer, but I definitely see that. I think it works the other way too. We can certainly learn more about applying faith in life more from folks like you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Very interesting. So this concludes our month of February Entrepreneurship Month, and thanks to George Snyder and his team for arranging these excellent speakers. March 2nd, next week, we will have a kind of a club assembly. We'll be talking about the gala and distributing the packets and getting you enthusiastic about the gala. Thanks today to our greeter, Ron Barnhouse, who wraps up his February. Joe, did you say something? No. And thanks also to Tom Tobin, John Hairston, and Ron Barnhouse for setting up. And Adriana, thank you. Our fine day today, Rotabuck, is $11 to the winner and $186 jackpot. So we'll let Debbie draw the winning ticket. And the last 4 numbers are 3242. 3242, that was an early person. Phil. And Tom Tobin, what did you do with the money?
I bought his ticket for him.
Did you?
See the black marble in it?
I see it.
Okay.
Oh,
No, I'll take it.
you can take it.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.